Jake Miller sat in front of his computer screen on the spaceship Terra Nova. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he did not notice. His job was to check messages that came from different planets across the galaxy. Most messages were boring reports about trade or weather. Some were complaints about shipping delays. A few were news updates from distant worlds. But this message was different. Jake read it 3 times before he believed what he was seeing. The message was written in broken English, clearly translated from another language. It said, "Human, Mom requires a husband and I want a dad, please marry her." At the bottom of the message was a picture. It looked like a child had drawn it with crayons. The drawing showed a tall blue figure holding hands with a smaller blue figure and a figure that looked human. Above the drawing, someone had written "My family" in shaky letters. Jake leaned back in his chair and scratched his head. In his 5 years working on the Terra Nova, he had seen many strange messages. But nothing like this. The message came from someone called Kick 7. The location showed it came from a research station in Zephyrian space. The Zephyrians were blue-skinned aliens who had recently signed a peace treaty with humans. Before the treaty, humans and Zephyrians had fought a terrible war that lasted 3 years. Jake clicked on the sender information. Kick 7 appeared to be young, maybe equivalent to a human child of 8 or 9 years old. The message had been posted on the main galactic communication network, which meant millions of beings across the galaxy could see it. "Hey Jake, what are you looking at?" Jake turned around to see his friend and crewmate Pete Johnson walking into the communication room. Pete was carrying a sandwich and looked tired from his shift in the engine room. "You need to see this," Jake said, pointing at his screen. Pete walked over and read the message. His eyes grew wide. Then he started laughing so hard he almost dropped his sandwich. "Are you serious? Some alien kid is trying to find his mom a husband on the galactic internet?" "It looks that way," Jake said. "Look at this drawing he made." Pete looked at the picture and his laughter stopped. "Oh, wow. The kid really wants a dad, doesn't he?" Jake nodded. Something about the message touched his heart. He had grown up without a father himself. His dad had died in a mining accident when Jake was 7. He remembered how much he had wanted a father figure, someone to teach him how to throw a ball or help him with homework. "Poor kid," Pete said. "But why does he want a human? I mean, wouldn't it make more sense for his mom to marry another Zephyrian?" Jake had wondered the same thing. He did some research on his computer and found some interesting information. During the war, human soldiers had become famous for protecting alien civilians, even when it put them in danger. There were stories of human troops risking their lives to save Zephyrian children from bombing attacks. "I think the kid has been watching our TV shows," Jake said, showing Pete some data on his screen. "Look at this. Someone has been intercepting Earth broadcasts in this sector. The kid probably saw shows about human families." Pete read over Jake's shoulder. "So he thinks all human dads are like the ones on TV? That's actually kinda sweet." "And kinda sad," Jake added. The 2 men sat in silence for a moment, both thinking about the young alien who just wanted a complete family. "You know what the crazy part is?" Pete said. "This message has been up for 3 days, and no one has replied to it." Jake felt a strange urge to do something about that. He had always been good with kids. Before joining the military, he had worked as a teacher on Earth. He loved helping children learn and grow. "Maybe I should reply," Jake said quietly. Pete stared at him. "Are you crazy? You can't just marry some alien woman because her kid asked nicely." "I'm not talking about marriage," Jake said quickly. "But maybe I could write back to the kid. Let him know that someone read his message." "Jake, we're not supposed to make personal contact with aliens without permission. You know the rules." Jake knew Pete was right. Military regulations were very clear about unauthorized communication with alien species. But something about the child's message kept bothering him. Later that evening, Jake could not stop thinking about Kick 7. He imagined a young alien child sitting at a computer, carefully typing out his message in a language he barely understood. The kid had probably worked hard on that drawing too. Jake decided to do some more research. He found out that Kick 7's mother was Dr. Vera Zell Prime, a famous scientist who studied different alien species. She was well respected in the scientific community and had written many important papers about interspecies biology. The records also showed that Dr. Vera had lost her mate during the final battle of the Human-Zephyrian War. Her partner had been a soldier who died protecting a civilian transport ship. Jake felt his heart sink. So the kid was not just looking for any father. He was looking for someone to replace the dad he had lost in the war. That night, Jake lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling. He kept thinking about his own childhood, about wishing for a father figure. He thought about all the human values that made people want to protect and care for children, even children from other species. Before he fell asleep, Jake made a decision. Tomorrow he would talk to Captain Rodriguez about the message. Maybe there was a way to help this child without breaking any rules. After all, wasn't building better relationships with other species part of their mission out here among the stars? The last thing Jake saw before closing his eyes was the image of that simple drawing, 2 blue figures and 1 human figure holding hands like a real family. Captain Lisa Rodriguez looked at Jake Miller across her desk with raised eyebrows. She had been the captain of the Terra Nova for 8 years and had seen many unusual requests from her crew. But this was definitely a first. "Let me understand this correctly," she said slowly. "You want permission to respond to a personal message from an alien child who is looking for a stepfather for his mother?" Jake shifted in his chair. "I know it sounds strange, Captain, but I think this could be good for human-Zephyrian relations. The kid clearly admires humans, and his mother is an important scientist." Captain Rodriguez picked up the printed copy of Kix-7's message that Jake had brought her. She looked at the drawing again and shook her head with a small smile. "This is either the most innocent diplomatic opportunity I've ever seen, or the strangest way to start an interstellar incident," she said. "What exactly do you want to do?" "Just meet them," Jake said. "The kid's message shows he's been alone with his mother since his father died in the war. Maybe I could help him understand more about humans, answer his questions. Nothing romantic or anything like that." The captain studied Jake carefully. She had known him for 3 years and trusted his judgment. Jake was one of her best officers, smart, careful, and good with people. He had also lost his own father as a child, which might explain why this situation affected him so much. "I'll think about it," she said finally. "But if I agree to this, you follow every protocol. This is unofficial contact only, and if anything goes wrong, you're on your own." 2 days later, Jake found himself on a small transport ship heading to Research Station Omega-7. Captain Rodriguez had decided that the potential benefits outweighed the risks. She had also pointed out that humans needed to show Zephyrians that they cared about more than just military treaties. The research station was smaller than Jake had expected. It looked like a metal flower floating in space with 6 arms extending from a central hub. Each arm housed different laboratories and living spaces. Jake felt nervous as he walked through the docking bay. He had fought against Zephyrians during the war, but he had never actually talked to one in person. He wondered what Dr. Vera would think of him. Would she be angry that some strange human had responded to her child's message? A tall blue figure walked toward him from across the docking bay. Jake's first thought was that Zephyrians were much taller than he had realized. Dr. Vera stood nearly 7 feet tall, with smooth blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the station lights. She had 4 arms instead of 2, and her eyes were larger than human eyes. But despite her alien appearance, Jake could see something familiar in her expression. She looked embarrassed and worried, like any parent whose child had done something unexpected. "You must be Jake Miller," she said in accented but clear English. "I am Dr. Vera Zal Prime. I apologize for my child's message. Kix-7 did not ask permission before posting it." "Please don't apologize," Jake said quickly. "Your son's message was very honest. I was impressed by how much he cares about your family, Dr." Vera looked surprised. "You are not here to make fun of us?" "Not at all. I wanted to meet Kix-7 and answer any questions he might have about humans. I used to be a teacher before I joined the military." Dr. Vera's expression softened. "That is very kind. Kix-7 has many questions about your species. He has been watching your television programs, She led Jake through the station corridors. The walls were covered with flowing designs that looked like living art. Everything was built for beings much taller than humans, so Jake felt small as they walked. Kick-7 does not remember his father very well, Dr. Vera said quietly as they walked. He was very young when the war ended. I think he has created an image of what fathers should be like based on your entertainment programs. That must be difficult for you, Jake said. It is. I want him to be happy, but I also want him to understand that real life is different from television. They stopped outside a door marked with Zephyrian symbols. Dr. Vera touched a panel and the door slid open. Kick-7, our visitor is here. The room inside was clearly a child's bedroom, but everything was sized for a young Zephyrian. The bed was much higher than a human bed, and the ceiling was covered with glowing stars. Toys were scattered across the floor, including what looked like model spaceships and alien action figures. A small blue figure peeked out from behind the bed. Kick-7 was about 4 feet tall, with the same shimmering blue skin as his mother. His eyes were huge and bright with curiosity. Are you really a human? Kick-7 asked in a high, excited voice. I really am, Jake said, kneeling down to be closer to the child's height. My name is Jake, I got your message. Kick-7's face lit up with joy. He ran across the room and stopped just in front of Jake, staring at him with wonder. You look just like the humans on television. Do you really protect people? Do you play something called baseball? Do you tell bedtime stories? Jake laughed. Yes to all of those things. Would you like me to tell you about them? For the next hour, Jake sat on the floor of Kick-7's room, answering questions about Earth and human customs. The child wanted to know about everything. Why humans had only 2 arms, what snow felt like, how families celebrated birthdays. Dr. Vera sat nearby, watching the interaction with interest. Jake noticed that she seemed to relax as she saw how patient he was with her child's endless questions. Then the station's alarm system began to sound. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and a voice spoke in the Zephyrian language over the communication system. Dr. Vera jumped to her feet, her face filled with worry. What's happening? Jake asked. Corvin raiders, Dr. Vera said, her voice tense. They attack research stations to steal technology. We must get to the safe rooms. Jake's military training kicked in immediately. How good are your defenses? Not very good. This is a science station, not a military base. Jake thought quickly. During the war, he had learned that Corvin raiders were brutal but not very smart. They relied on surprise attacks and overwhelming force. I can help organize your defense, Jake said. But I need to know what resources you have. Dr. Vera looked uncertain. You would help us, even though we are not your people? Jake looked down at Kick-7, who was pressed against his mother's side with fear in his large eyes. Without thinking, Jake put his hand on the child's shoulder. You are under attack, and there's a child here who needs protection. That makes you my people. Dr. Vera stared at Jake for a moment. Then she nodded. Follow me. I will show you what we have. As they ran through the corridors toward the station's control room, Jake realized that this was no longer just a friendly visit. This was his first real test of whether he could be the kind of person that Kick-7 believed all humans to be. Someone who would risk everything to protect the people he cared about. 3 weeks after the Corvin raid, Jake Miller found himself doing something he never thought he would do. He was teaching a young alien how to throw a baseball in the recreation area of Research Station Omega-7. Remember what I told you about your stance, Jake said, demonstrating the proper way to hold the ball. Keep your feet apart and step forward when you throw. Kick-7 nodded seriously, his forearms making the throwing motion look different from what Jake was used to. The young Zephyrian had been practicing every day since Jake had started visiting the station regularly. Like this? Kick-7 asked, winding. Up for the throw. Perfect, now let it go. The ball flew across the room and bounced off the far wall. Kick-7 jumped up and down with excitement. I did it! Did you see, Mom? I threw it really far. Dr. Vera looked up from her work tablet, where she had been recording notes about human play behavior. Over the past few weeks, she had been studying Jake almost as much as Jake had been spending time with her son. "I saw, little one. Very good throw." Jake walked over to retrieve the ball. The recreation area had been his idea. After the raid, when he had helped organize the station's defenses, Captain Rodriguez had given him extended leave to help improve human-Zephyrian relations. The station commander had been so grateful for Jake's help during the attack that he had given Jake a temporary room on the station. "Can we play catch now?" Kick-7 asked hopefully. "Of course, but first tell me what you learned in your science class today." This had become their routine. Jake would help Kick-7 with homework, then they would play games or Jake would tell stories about Earth. In return, Kick-7 taught Jake about Zephyrian culture and language. "I learned about stellar formation," Kick-7 said proudly. "Did you know that some stars are born in groups? They stay together their whole lives, like families." "That's very interesting," Jake said, tossing the ball gently to Kick-7. "What else did you learn?" As they played catch, Jake noticed Dr. Vera watching them with a strange expression. Over the weeks, she had become less formal with him. She had started calling him by his first name instead of Lieutenant Miller, and she often asked him to stay for dinner. Jake had learned a lot about Dr. Vera, too. She was brilliant, with 3 advanced degrees in xenobiology. She worked longer hours than anyone else on the station, often forgetting to eat or sleep. She was also incredibly protective of Kick-7, checking on him multiple times throughout the day. But Jake had also noticed that she seemed lonely. She rarely talked to other adults on the station outside of work. She had no close friends and she never took time for herself. "Jake," Kick-7 said suddenly, "what's a birthday party?" "It's a celebration that humans have once a year, on the day they were born. Families and friends get together, eat cake, and give presents." Kick-7's eyes grew wide. "That sounds wonderful. Do Zephyrians have birthday parties?" Dr. Vera looked up from her tablet. "We have maturation ceremonies when children reach certain ages, but not annual celebrations." "When is your birthday, Kick-7?" Jake asked. "I don't know." "Mom, when was I born?" Dr. Vera calculated quickly. "In Earth time, it would be in about 2 weeks." Jake grinned. "Then we should have a birthday party for you." "Really?" Kick-7 dropped the ball and ran over to Jake. "With cake and presents?" "Absolutely. If your mom says it's okay." Dr. Vera looked uncertain. "I do not know how to make Earth cake." "I can teach you," Jake said. "I'm pretty good at baking." Over the next 2 weeks, Jake spent even more time on the station. He helped Dr. Vera learn to bake a chocolate cake, which turned out to be surprisingly difficult in the station's artificial gravity. He also worked with some of the other scientists to make simple presents for Kick-7. During this time, Jake began to see a different side of Dr. Vera. When she wasn't working, she was funny and curious. She asked Jake hundreds of questions about Earth culture, human emotions, and family traditions. She seemed fascinated by the way humans showed affection through small daily actions. "On Zephyros, our home planet, relationships are more formal," she explained one evening as they worked together in the station's small kitchen. "Partners are chosen based on genetic compatibility and intellectual ability. Love, as humans understand, it is not considered important." "That sounds lonely," Jake said, stirring cake batter. "I never thought so before," Dr. Vera said quietly. "But watching you with Kick-7, I see how much joy there can be in emotional connections." Jake looked at her, noticing how the kitchen lights made her blue skin shimmer. "Kick-7 is a special kid. Any parent would be lucky to have him." "You would make a good father," Dr. Vera said, then immediately looked embarrassed. "I mean, you are very patient with children." Before Jake could respond, Kick-7 ran into the kitchen. "Is the cake ready yet? I can smell it from my room." "Almost," Jake said, glad for the interruption. "Why don't you help your mom with the frosting?" The birthday party was a bigger success than Jake had expected. Several of the station scientists attended, bringing small gifts they had made in their laboratories. Jake had convinced the station commander to give everyone the afternoon off. Kick-7 was thrilled with everything: the cake, the presents, but most of all with having so many people celebrating with him. He made everyone wear party hats that Jake had designed using station materials. "This is the best day of my life," Kick 7 announced, chocolate cake smeared around his mouth. As the party wound down, Jake found himself sitting alone with Dr. Vera in her quarters. Kick 7 had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from excitement. "Thank you," Dr. Vera said softly. "I have never seen him so happy." "Thank you for letting me be part of it," Jake replied. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Kick 7 sleep. "Jake," Dr. Vera said hesitantly, "can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Why did you really respond to Kick 7's message? It could not have been just curiosity." Jake thought about his answer carefully. "I lost my father when I was young, like Kick 7 did. I remember wishing someone would care enough to step in and help. And now?" Jake looked at the sleeping child, then at Dr. Vera. "Now I care about both of you more than I expected to." Dr. Vera met his eyes. "I care about you too, more than is probably wise." Before either of them could say anything else, Jake's communication device beeped. He looked at the message and his face grew serious. "What is it?" Dr. Vera asked. "Orders from my ship. There's an emergency situation near the Magellan cluster. I have to report back immediately." Dr. Vera's expression fell. "How long will you be gone?" "I don't know. Could be weeks, maybe months." Kick 7 stirred on the couch and opened his eyes. "Jake, are you leaving?" Jake knelt down beside the couch. "I have to go back to my ship for a while, buddy, but I'll come back as soon as I can." Kick 7's eyes filled with tears. "Promise?" Jake felt his heart break a little. "I promise." As Jake packed his few belongings, he realized that leaving the station felt like leaving home. Somewhere over the past few weeks, Dr. Vera and Kick 7 had become more than just an assignment or a diplomatic opportunity. They had become family. Jake Miller stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, staring at the massive Zephyrian colony ship that was slowly dying in the darkness of space. The ship was called the Hope of Zephyros, and it carried 10,000 civilians who were trying to reach a new colony world. "How bad is it?" Captain Rodriguez asked, looking at the damage reports on her screen. "Very bad," replied Commander Sarah Kim, the ship's chief engineer. "Their main power core is failing, and their life support systems are shutting down one by one. At this rate, they have maybe 6 hours before the ship becomes completely unlivable." Jake felt his stomach turn. 6 hours to save 10,000 people, including thousands of children. The Hope of Zephyros was too big for the Terra Nova to tow to safety, and their rescue shuttles could only carry 50 people at a time. Standard evacuation procedures would let us save maybe 2,000 people, Captain Rodriguez said grimly. "We need a miracle." Jake studied the tactical display, his mind racing. The colony ship was trapped in a dangerous area of space filled with radiation and unstable gravity fields. Any rescue ship that got too close risked being destroyed. "Captain," Jake said suddenly, "I have an idea, but it's going to be very risky." "I'm listening." "What if we don't try to tow the ship? What if we move it?" Commander Kim looked confused. "Jake, we can't push something that massive. The physics don't work." "Not push it. Use controlled explosions to nudge it toward the safe zone. We set charges along the ship's hull at specific points. The explosions would push the ship in the right direction." Captain Rodriguez stared at him. "That's insane. One mistake and we could destroy the ship completely." "The ship is going to be destroyed anyway if we don't do something," Jake pointed out. "This way we might save everyone." Before the captain could respond, the communication officer spoke up. "Captain, we're getting a message from the colony ship. Someone wants to speak with Lieutenant Miller." "Put it through." The main screen flickered and Dr. Vera's face appeared. She looked tired and worried, but Jake was incredibly happy to see her. "Jake, thank goodness you are here." "Vera, what are you doing on that ship?" "Kick 7 and I were traveling to the new colony to set up a research station. We heard about the emergency and I offered to help with medical care." Jake's heart sank. Not only were there 10,000 strangers in danger, but the two people he cared about most were also on the failing ship. How is Kick 7? Jake asked. Scared, but safe for now. Jake, the situation here is very bad. Many of the older Zephyrians are already having trouble breathing because of the failing life support. We're going to get you out of there, Jake said, firmly. All of you. After the communication ended, Captain Rodriguez looked at Jake with new understanding. Those aren't just random civilians to you, are they? No, Captain. They're not. Then we better make sure your crazy plan works. For the next 2 hours, Jake worked with the Terra Nova's engineering team to calculate exactly where to place the explosive charges. The margin for error was incredibly small. Too little force, and the colony ship would not move far enough to reach safety. Too much force, and the ship's hull would crack open like an egg. Dr. Vera volunteered to help coordinate the evacuation from inside the colony ship. Using her scientific knowledge, she identified the safest areas where civilians could gather. During the explosion sequence, I should be over there helping, Jake said as he watched teams of engineers prepare the explosive charges. You're helping more by being here, Captain Rodriguez replied. This plan only works if every calculation is perfect. As the Terra Nova moved closer to the dying colony ship, Jake felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. If he made even one small mistake, thousands of people would die, including Vera and Kick 7. Jake, came Kick 7's voice over the communication system. Are you really going to save us? I'm going to try my best, buddy. I knew you would come. I told everyone that humans always protect people, especially children. Jake closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about all the times during the war when human soldiers had risked their lives to save alien civilians. He thought about what made humans special in the galaxy, not their technology or their weapons, but their willingness to help others, even at great cost to themselves. Charges are in position, reported Commander Kim. All teams are back aboard. Colony ship, this is Terra Nova, Captain Rodriguez announced. Prepare for controlled displacement. All civilians should be secured in the designated safe areas. We are ready, Dr. Vera's voice replied. And Jake? Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Jake muttered, his hands flying over the control panel. The first explosion lit up the darkness of space. Jake watched the sensors carefully, making tiny adjustments to the next sequence of charges. The colony ship began to move, slowly at first, then faster as each explosion pushed it toward the safe zone. Hull stress is within acceptable limits, Commander Kim reported. But barely. Halfway through the sequence, something went wrong. One of the charges exploded earlier than planned, sending the colony ship spinning slightly off course. We're going to miss the safe zone, shouted the navigation officer. Jake's mind raced. He had planned for many possible problems, but not this exact situation. He looked at the display showing the colony ship's new trajectory. If he did nothing, the ship would drift into an asteroid field and be destroyed. I can compensate, Jake said, but I need to set off the remaining charges in a different pattern. It's going to put a lot more stress on the ship's hull. How much? More stress? Captain Rodriguez asked. Enough that the ship might break apart. The captain was quiet for a moment. What are the odds of success? Maybe 50-50. And if we don't try? 0 chance. The ship will definitely be destroyed. Captain Rodriguez nodded. Do it. Jake began the new sequence, his heart pounding. Through the communication system, he could hear Dr. Vera talking calmly to the civilians, telling them to stay strong just a little longer. The final explosion was the biggest. Jake watched in terror as the colony ship's hull groaned and twisted under the force. For a moment, it looked like the ship might tear itself apart, but it held together. Colony ship is entering the safe zone, the navigation officer announced. They're going to make it. Cheers erupted on the Terra Nova's bridge. But Jake felt dizzy and had to sit down. The stress of the last few hours had taken everything out of him. Jake, Kick 7's excited voice came over the speakers. You did it. You saved everyone. Over the next few hours, rescue ships arrived to take the civilians off the damaged colony ship. Jake watched through the viewports as thousands of Zephyrians were transferred to safety. When Dr. Vera and Kick 7 finally arrived aboard the Terra Nova, Jake was waiting for them in the docking bay. Kick-7 ran straight into his arms. "I knew you would save us," the young Zephyrian said, hugging Jake tightly. "I told everyone that my human dad would come for us." Jake looked over Kick-7's head at Dr. Vera, who had tears in her large eyes. "Thank you," she said simply. "I couldn't let anything happen to my family," Jake replied. Dr. Vera stepped closer to him. "Your family?" Jake realized what he had said. "I mean, if you want to be. Both of you." Dr. Vera reached out with one of her forearms and touched his face gently. "Yes, I think we would like that very much." As the Terra Nova began its journey back to safer space, Jake held Kick-7 while Dr. Vera stood beside them. For the first time since he was a child himself, Jake felt like he truly belonged somewhere. He had proven that humans really would risk everything to protect the people they loved, even if those people happened to be blue-skinned aliens from across the galaxy. 6 months later, Jake Miller stood in front of a mirror in his new quarters on New Terra Colony, trying to figure out how to tie a human necktie while wearing a Zephyrian ceremonial robe. The robe was beautiful, made of shimmering blue fabric. That changed color in the light, but it was designed for someone with 4 arms instead of 2. "Need some help?" Dr. Vera asked, walking into the room. She looked stunning in her own ceremonial outfit, which combined traditional Zephyrian wedding garments with a white dress that Kick-7 had insisted she wear. "I think I'm going to strangle myself with this tie," Jake said, laughing. Vera stepped behind him and used her forearms to help adjust both the robe and the tie. "There, you look very handsome." "You look beautiful," Jake said, turning to face her. "Are you nervous?" "A little. Zephyrian bonding ceremonies are usually much smaller and more private. Your idea of combining it with a human wedding is unusual." Kick-7 really wanted both traditions, Jake reminded her. "He's been planning this for weeks." Through the window, they could see the ceremony area that had been set up in the colony's main garden. Chairs were arranged in rows and decorations hung from the trees. It was small compared to Earth weddings, but it felt perfect for their little family. New Terra Colony had been built as a joint human-Zephyrian settlement, the first of its kind. After Jake's successful rescue of the Hope of Zephyros, both governments had decided that cooperation between their species was more important than old fears and prejudices. Jake had been offered a position as the colony's cultural liaison officer, helping human and Zephyrian families learn to live together. Dr. Vera had been given a research lab where she could study how the two species might work together in the future. But the best part of the new arrangement was that they could finally be a real family. "Are you ready?" Vera asked. "I've been ready since the day I read Kick-7's message," Jake replied. They walked together to the ceremony area. Jake's friends from the Terra Nova were there, including Captain Rodriguez and Pete Johnson. Dr. Vera's colleagues from the research station had also come. But the most important guest was Kick-7, who was wearing a small version of Jake's outfit and grinning so widely it looked like his face might split in half. "Dad Jake," Kick-7 called out, running over to them. "Everyone's here. Are you excited?" "Very excited," Jake said, ruffling the young Zephyrian's head. The ceremony began with Captain Rodriguez reading from both human and Zephyrian texts about the meaning of family and commitment. Then Jake and Vera exchanged vows they had written together. "Vera," Jake said, "when I first read your son's message, I thought I was just helping a lonely child. I never expected to find the family I had been looking for my whole life. You have taught me that love doesn't require the same species, the same planet, or even the same number of arms. It just requires open hearts and the willingness to take care of each other." Vera's voice was soft but clear. "Jake, you came into our lives at a time when we had lost hope for happiness. You showed Kick-7 what it means to have a father who protects and guides with patience and love. You showed me what it means to have a partner who values emotion and connection as much as logic and compatibility. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our species and the love that brought us together." Then came Kick-7's favorite part, the ring exchange. He had been practicing for weeks, carrying the rings on a small pillow. He walked very carefully to the front, trying not to drop anything. The rings represent the endless circle of love and commitment, Captain Rodriguez explained for the mixed audience. In human tradition, couples wear these as a symbol of their bond, Jake slipped a specially made ring onto one of Vera's 4 hands. The ring was designed with both human and Zephyrian symbols, representing their 2 worlds coming together. After the formal ceremony came the party. Tables were set up with food from both Earth and Zephyros. The humans had brought cake just as Kick-7 had requested, while the Zephyrians contributed dishes that glowed softly and tasted like nothing Jake had ever experienced. "This is the best day ever," Kick-7 announced to everyone who would listen. "I have a real dad now, and Mom is so happy she keeps smiling even when she thinks no one is looking." Jake watched as human and Zephyrian children played together in the garden, their parents talking and laughing nearby. A year ago, these 2 species had been at war. Now they were building a community together. "You did good, kid," Captain Rodriguez said, walking up to Jake with a glass of champagne. "When you first asked me about responding to that message, I thought you were crazy. Turns out you might be one of the smartest diplomats in the galaxy." "I just followed my heart," Jake said. "That's what makes humans special," the captain replied. "We lead with our hearts, and somehow it usually works out." As the evening went on, Jake found himself sitting with Vera and Kick-7 under the stars. The young Zephyrian was leaning against Jake's shoulder, tired from all the excitement but determined not to miss any of the celebration. "Jake," Kick-7 said sleepily, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, buddy. Now that you're really my dad, do you think maybe I could have a little brother or sister someday?" Jake and Vera looked at each other and laughed. They had talked about this possibility, and while it would be scientifically challenging, it was not impossible. Human and Zephyrian biology were different, but not so different that they couldn't have children together with some medical help. "We'll see," Vera said diplomatically. "That's something for your dad and me to discuss." "I hope so," Kick-7 said, yawning. "It would be nice to teach someone else about baseball and birthday parties." Jake looked around at the colony, at the mixed families and the children playing together, at the homes that represented hope for the future. A year ago, he had been a lonely military officer whose only family was his crewmates. Now he was a husband and father, living in a place where 2 species were learning to become one people. All because one brave little alien child had decided to ask the galaxy for help, and one human had decided to answer. "What are you thinking about?" Vera asked, noticing his distant expression. "I'm thinking about how one simple message can change everything," Jake said. Kick-7's post was maybe 50 words long, but it brought 3 different worlds together: yours, mine, and the one we're building here. "Do you think we'll have more children like Kick-7 in the future? Children who grow up seeing humans and Zephyrians as just different kinds of people?" Jake looked down at Kick-7, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder. The young Zephyrian's face was peaceful and happy, without any of the fear or sadness that had been there when they first met. "I think we're going to have a whole generation of kids who don't understand why their parents ever thought humans and Zephyrians were so different," Jake said. "And that's going to be a beautiful thing." As the celebration continued around them, Jake held his new family close and thought about the future. There would be challenges, of course. Building a life together across species would never be easy. But they had already proven that love could overcome war, fear, and prejudice. If a lonely child's message could bring 2 species together, imagine what their children might accomplish. The stars above New Terra Colony shone down on humans and Zephyrians alike, lighting the way toward a future that none of them could have imagined just 1 year before. And at the center of it all was one very happy family, brought together by hope, courage, and the simple belief that everyone deserves to be loved.